Hey there guys, alright, today we are back with some more of the Great War. This time we're on to week 56. Escalation at sea, Russia up against the wall. Now this is some new lighting on there and he is looking brighter. A lot lighter, more colorful. I don't know how to feel about it. I kind of like the kind of that, I don't know, less light look that they had in the, up until now, I guess. Don't know if it was just a. We'll see if in week 57 if they keep this lighting or not. Don't know why I'm paying so much attention to it. I ultimately don't care. Before we dive in though, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love it if you joined the Discord and followed me over at Twitch. All that's out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in.
The Russians had been retreating from 2 Austro-German offensives for months and had even lost Warsaw, which they had controlled since the time of Napoleon. This was a bitter pill to swallow, but not as bitter as the one this week. This week, the Russians lost the mighty fortress city of Kovno.
Oh no! Whatever will they do?
I'm Indy Nidell. Welcome to the Great War. Last week, the Germans launched Zeppelin air raids on the British coast, killing civilians. The German Navy tried to attack Riga, but was driven off by the Russians, but was bombing the crap out of Kovno with howitzers with a range of 14 kilometers. At Gallipoli, the British forces were driven from Chunuk Bair by the heroism of Turkish leader Mustafa Kemal and their own blunders, and the Western Front remained relatively quiet. Of course, relatively quiet just means relative to the other fronts. There were still attacks, counterattacks, snipers, and artillery barrages every day. Here's a story from the Western Front that I got from Martin Gilbert's The First World War that illustrates the lighter side of the war there. On August 16th, the diary of Captain F. Hitchcock notes that his trenches were inspected that day by his brigadier general, who said that the battalion had done a splendid job, but he objected to a German soldier's leg that was sticking out of the parapet. The general told Hitchcock to remove it. Hitchcock wrote, "I called Finnegan and told him to remove the offending limb. As it would have meant pulling down the whole parapet to bury it, he took up a shovel and slashed at it with the sharp edge of the tool. After some hard bangs, he managed to sever the limb. I turned away and overheard Finnegan remarking to another man, 'And what the bloody hell will I hang me equipment on now?' As you can well imagine."
He's doing accents now? Okay, Indy. Okay.
Much of the trench humor was of that black character. But there was nothing funny about the British situation on another trench-filled front. At Gallipoli on August 14th, British Secretary of State for War Lord Herbert Kitchener read General Sir Ian Hamilton's reports about last week's Allied landings at Suvla Bay and was seriously pissed off by the commander's failure to advance in the early stages of the mission and at some of the weaknesses revealed. For example, the Welsh 53rd Division landed with no artillery, no stores, and only 1 field ambulance. Kitchener even wrote to Winston Churchill about it. "I am taking steps to having these generals replaced by real fighters." 2 days later, 1 corps commander and 2 divisional generals were relieved of command. Churchill's brother Jack, who was on Hamilton's staff, wrote about the men though. "They are not cowards. It is partly on account of their training. They have never seen a shot fired before. For a year, they have been soldiers and during that time have been taught only one thing: trench warfare. They have been told to dig everywhere and have been led to expect an enemy at 100 yards. They have learned to regard an advance of 100 yards as a matter of the greatest importance. They landed and advanced half a mile and thought they had done something wonderful. They seemed not to know what to do. They showed extraordinary ignorance."
You can't really blame them for how, I guess, the cautiousness of their advance when the soldiers have been experiencing one type of warfare so long already, or have been trained in one sort of way. So I can't really blame them.
This week there was again an Allied attack from Suvla Bay. They drove back the Ottomans for 8 hours, but the counterattack pushed them right back to their starting positions. Just the same thing over and over again. On August 19th, the White Star liner Arabic was torpedoed en route to New York, killing 44 people, including 3 Americans. This nearly prompted a diplomatic incident, but new German orders that passenger ships would only be sunk after warning them and saving their passengers and crew, known as the Arabic Pledge, prevented that. But also this week, the German sub U-27 shelled and stopped the cargo steamer Nicosia, which was bringing mules from New Orleans to England, right? Then a British armored ship, the Baralong, came up flying the American flag and pretending to be an American merchant ship. It had on board 2 concealed guns and a platoon of Royal Marines. They suddenly lowered the flag, raised British colors, and opened fire on the sub. 12 of the sub's crew jumped into the water, and when the Marines opened fire on them, 6 were killed. The other 6 reached the Nicosia and tried to take refuge.
Okay, it's a bit fucked up, Britain, but like I understand the reasons why you do it tactically, but like that could really cause a huge diplomatic incident.
But they were hunted down and killed by the Marines, and their bodies were thrown overboard. The German ambassador in Washington protested the use of the American flag to murder
Okay, yeah, no, it is causing a diplomatic incident.
German sailors. The German surface fleet saw some action this week, too. On the 18th, attacking the entrance to the Gulf of Riga, they were met with unexpected Russian skill. The Germans were forced to retire after losing 2 cruisers and 8 torpedo boats. The Russians lost only 1 gunboat. The following day, a German landing force at Pernau was destroyed by the Russians, and on the 20th, the Germans did manage to penetrate the Gulf, but were forced to retire. The landings failed. However, the German failure at sea in the Baltic paled in comparison to the success on land there. Kovno, one of the great symbols of Russian military might, fell to the Germans on the 17th after being under attack for a couple of weeks. Now, this was not just an immense blow to Russian pride, but a physical bounty for the Germans. Not only did all roads and railways from Russia to Germany pass through the city, but the Germans captured 1,365 big guns and 853,000 shells.
Damn.
The Russian commander of the fortress,
That's like 2 hours of shelling.
General Grigoriev,
Actually, I have no clue what that would equate to.
fled before the Germans arrived and had failed to blow up the only railway tunnel between Ostend and Petrograd.
No, he literally had one job.
Did not blow the bridge over the Niemen River and actually left the fortress without telling his chief of staff. He was court-martialed and sentenced to 8 years hard labor.
Oh.
In addition to the guns and shells, another of the spoils of victory was this. Several million tins of preserved meat were found in the fortress. This was the main Russian frontline supply. This week, like pretty much every week for the Russians lately, was bad along the whole Eastern Front. On the 15th, the Russian line at Bryansk was broken and 5,000 Russians were taken prisoner. On the 17th, the fortress of Novo-Georgievsk with 90,000 Russians inside was bombarded furiously and its outlying forts captured. That day, the Chelm-Brest-Litovsk railway line was cut, and 2 days later, the mighty fortress of Novo-Georgievsk surrendered, and the Russian army lost those 90,000 men, including officers, as prisoners of war. Now, that was on the 19th, but on the 17th, the total number of Russian prisoners of war in German camps was 726,694, and in Austro-Hungarian camps, 699,254, for a total of 1,425,848 prisoners.
How the fuck? You know, that's the one thing in modern war that is so hard for me to grasp. Is where the fuck are you putting all these POWs?
Prisoners. The 90,000 from Novo-Georgievsk would push that to over 1.5 million. In case you were wondering how this compared to the other allies, the Germans held 330,000 British, French, and Belgians combined, a fifth the number of Russians. As you may imagine, conditions in the camps could be inhumane. Actually, this month at the camp in Wittenberg, typhus had become so widespread that the administration abandoned the camp. Yep, they left. And there were 15,000 Russian, British, and French prisoners inside. They just surrounded them with a big perimeter fence backed by machine guns and attack dogs. And one final note for the week. On August 20th, Italy formally declared war on the Ottoman Empire. And the week comes to an end with the Russians losing all along the Eastern Front, but beating back the Germans at sea. The Germans sank a liner with American passengers aboard, complained that the British duped them by fighting under an American flag, and abandoned the prisoners in a POW camp to disease. The Allies realized that Gallipoli was unwinnable with the current leadership and tactics, and it was business as usual in the West. 1.5 million Russian prisoners. The loss of Warsaw, Lemberg, Przemysl, and now both Kovno and Novogeorgiyevsk in the same week. 4 months of constant retreat, government officials being accused of treason, revolutionary fever in the ranks of the demoralized troops. By this time, the Russian army was down to fewer than 4 million men. But you know, and I know, that this has happened before with Napoleon and would again with Hitler. And I think we are all aware that inflicting catastrophic losses on Russia does not cause Russia to surrender. And in August 1915, the Germans were becoming very aware of that. Hopes for a peace with Russia were receding, even as they took more and more land, and Russian shell production doubled between May and July and would soon top 1 million shells per month. Perhaps Wallace Shawn was right in The Princess Bride when he said the #1 classic blunder was never wage a land war in Asia. Just imagine how the Tsar must have felt during this time. He, the absolute ruler of Russia, which was now in dire straits. Now his fate is very much connected with the Great War and the fate of Russia in the 20th century. You can find out more about him in our portrait right here.
All right, that was Escalation at Sea. Russia up against the wall. Great War Week 56. Nothing too exciting happening this week, honestly. The most exciting thing being a possible diplomatic incident between America and then both sides of the conflict here. Aside from that, yeah, I feel like this is essentially what's going to be the Great War for perhaps all of 1915. So, woohoo! Got to power through it. Well, that was Great War Week 56. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.